I was 17 when I first heard the phrase, family sacrifices. At the time, I thought it meant things like giving up dessert so everyone else could have a second helping. Maybe skipping out on a weekend trip because my sister had a piano recital. Small stuff. Reasonable stuff. But it turns out in my family, sacrifice had a very specific definition. Me. It meant me. Let me back up. My name's Carol. I'm the youngest of 2 daughters. My sister, Melanie, is older by 3 years and acts like she's older by 30. She's always been the princess. Literally. She was crowned homecoming queen 3 years in a row. Even when she'd already graduated, the school somehow invited her back. She has that kind of aura, the kind that makes people trip over themselves to open doors for her and call her brave when she cries because her fake nails chipped. I was the quiet one, the A student, the planner, the one who cooked dinner when mom worked late, the one who knew how to reset the Wi-Fi, the one with dreams of studying architecture in New York. And for most of my life, my parents supported that dream. My dad even had a special account named Carol's Future Fund. I saw the name printed clearly on the paper bank statements. He'd always joke, "One day we'll be visiting the Empire State Building and telling people, 'Our Carol made that.'" I believed him, until the day they sat me down in the living room, Melanie looking like she just won the lottery and my parents trying way too hard to smile. "We need to talk," my mother said, in her softest "I just killed your goldfish" tone. I remember the stillness in that moment, the fan buzzing above, the neighbor's lawnmower growling in the distance. Me sitting upright, clutching my acceptance letter to Cornell, waiting for them to burst into proud applause. But instead, my father cleared his throat. "Sweetie, things are a little tight right now. And your sister, well, her wedding plans went a little over budget." I blinked. "Okay. So, well," Mom jumped in. "We thought long and hard about this. And we've decided to put the college fund toward something that benefits the whole family." My mouth went dry. "What?" Melanie beamed. "We're going to Bali. Private villas, beachside dinners, a full 2 weeks. All inclusive." I stared at her, then at my parents, then back at her. My brain refused to process it. "You're using my college fund for a honeymoon?" Dad raised his hands like a hostage negotiator. "Now, don't make this into a fight. You're still young. You can always apply for scholarships or take a gap year. This is just temporary. And Bali," Melanie added, "isn't cheap, you know. You wouldn't want us to start our marriage with debt, would you?" I almost laughed. Almost. But my throat tightened too much to let it out. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't slam doors or break things. I just sat in my room, staring at the ceiling, calculating. Melanie's wedding venue was a local historical mansion called the Arland Estate. Elegant. Expensive. Everyone in town wanted to be married there. Her big day was still 3 months away. And I had time. Not to stop the wedding, but to make a note. That's when the plan began. I started working double shifts at the local cafe. Piled up cash. Quietly. I applied for a deferred year at Cornell. Didn't tell anyone. I contacted a former alum I'd met at a high school workshop and offered to intern under him remotely for free. He agreed. Architecture firms love passion. Especially silent, obedient passion. And most importantly, I began researching the Arland Estate. Turns out, the place was recently put up for sale. The owners were retiring and looking for a quick, clean deal. Now here's the thing, I didn't have millions. But I did have something better. Leverage. The Arland Estate was technically under a historical zoning code, which meant it could only be bought by someone willing to preserve the grounds. Most commercial buyers didn't want the hassle. I did. So I pitched a proposal. I'd turn the place into an architectural co-working space and community arts venue. I used the name of the alum I was interning for to back the proposal. I pitched it as part of a larger educational outreach initiative, and by some miracle of timing, luck, and the universe clearly having my back that week, they accepted. I bought the Arland Estate with a ridiculous loan, but it was mine. And here's where it gets even better. Melanie and my parents had no clue, because I didn't buy it under my own name. I used an LLC, blank, nondescript, and completely disconnected from me publicly. I hired a property manager to act as the intermediary. someone with a dry voice and no interest in small talk. The wedding plans continued like nothing had changed. Melanie ordered gold-trimmed invitations. My parents took ballroom dancing lessons for their big parent-daughter moment. I helped pick flowers, peach roses, white tulips, all while sipping tea and pretending not to own the place they were standing in. The irony tasted better than the tea. The day of the wedding arrived. I wore a dark green dress. Not a bridesmaid, just a guest. Because apparently, you'll have your time one day, honey. I arrived early, walked the halls, ran my fingers along the banisters, and smiled. The ceremony started at 4. The first sign something was off happened at 3:47. The coordinator walked in, pale-faced, holding a clipboard. "We have an issue," she said. Apparently, there had been a scheduling conflict, one that I had just discovered. The venue, according to the new owner, would no longer be available for private weddings, starting that very day. But that wasn't the best part. No. The best part was when Melanie, standing in her $5,000 gown, demanded to speak to the new owner. And the coordinator pointed at me. Everyone turned. I took a long sip of champagne and smiled again. But that delicious moment deserves its own chapter. Because what happened next? Well, let's just say Melanie's honeymoon wasn't the only trip that got canceled. There's a moment right after you drop a bomb, and before it explodes, this weightless, eerie silence, where everyone holds their breath. I lived in that moment for exactly 6 seconds. 6 long, perfect seconds. Melanie froze, her veil fluttering in the breeze like some tragic flag of surrender. My mom's mouth opened, but no words came out. Dad blinked like he was buffering. And the guests, they all looked from the wedding planner to me like they were waiting for someone to yell, "April Fools." But it was June. And I don't joke. "Carol," Melanie said slowly, as if tasting the name for the first time. "What is she talking about?" I adjusted the strap of my dress and took a leisurely step forward, like a villain at the climax of a murder mystery. "She's talking about me," I said. "I'm the new owner. As of last week." "You're lying," my father said, although the tremor in his voice told me he wasn't sure if he believed that himself. The planner stepped in. "All documentation has been verified. The venue was purchased by Everhart and Company last Thursday. Miss Carol Everhart is listed as the sole managing partner." Melanie's face twisted. "That's not even your last name." I shrugged. "I had to create a company. You'd be surprised how easy it is when you don't spend your days at nail salons." That earned a chuckle from someone in the back row. I think it was Aunt Deborah. Melanie stormed up to me, hiking her designer dress like she was about to wade through a battlefield. "You can't just cancel my wedding. This is my day." "Technically," I said, "you're not canceled. The venue just doesn't allow private events anymore." "I thought you read the contract." "I didn't sign anything." "Mom and Dad did." "Exactly. I gave them 3 different warnings in writing," I said sweetly. "Apparently, your wedding planner was forwarding emails to a junk folder. But don't worry, I've refunded their deposit, minus the damages to the gardens during your rehearsal party." Dad stepped forward, his face red. "This is beyond petty, Carol. You ruined your sister's wedding." I tilted my head. "You ruined my future. I figured we were even." Melanie's voice cracked. "Where are we supposed to go now?" I glanced at the sky. "It's a lovely afternoon. Maybe the park has availability." Mom gasped like I just slapped the Pope. "Carol," she whispered, "you're embarrassing the family." I nodded. "Yeah, that's sort of the point." Now, you might think I'd stop there. Just let the cancellation sting, and walked away the smug victor. But no, that's not how you teach people like Melanie. The planner, still pale and blinking like she might faint, cleared her throat. "Actually, there's one other detail." Everyone turned to her. "The owner has offered use of the back lawn for the ceremony under certain conditions." I smiled at her. She swallowed hard and continued. "There's a standard rental contract. Limited access. No music above 70 decibels. Maximum guest count of 30. And no catering inside the mansion." I sipped my champagne again. "Oh, and they'll need to be out by 6 p.m. sharp. We have a community architecture seminar scheduled." Melanie looked like she might throw up. "You want me to get married next to a group of students?" "Architecture students," I corrected. They're quite passionate and quiet, unlike you. The planner held out a clipboard. Do you wish to proceed under the terms, or should we begin notifying guests of the cancellation? Melanie turned to our parents like they were supposed to fix it, but Mom looked defeated. And Dad, he was finally connecting the dots. This wasn't just a prank. This was deliberate. The princess had been dethroned. Melanie signed the papers with shaking hands. The ceremony was held on the farthest edge of the lawn. The setup was pitiful. No music, no fancy lighting. The photographer refused to shoot without access to the main property, so they used an iPhone on a tripod. One of the flower girls had a nosebleed. A dog barked through half the vows. The groom forgot his line. Twice. And I stood on the mansion balcony, sipping champagne and watching it all. At 5:59, I walked onto the grass. Time's up, I said. The students are arriving. Melanie's new husband, Travis, a human mannequin in a tuxedo, turned to me, pale. Can we at least finish the toast? I pointed to the sign. Contract said 6 sharp. They scrambled. People scooped up chairs. Half the guests took their champagne glasses with them. A child cried. It was glorious. But my favorite part came after the guests had left and only Melanie and my parents remained. She stormed up the steps, veil now tangled and dirt-streaked. You ruined my wedding, she spat. I smiled. I improved your memory. You'll never forget it. Mom grabbed my arm. Why? Why would you go this far? I pulled the check out of my purse. Here's the total refund minus damages and legal fees. Should cover half a semester somewhere. Maybe you can finally invest in me now. Dad took the paper and stared at it like it was a death sentence. Then I turned to Melanie. You took something from me, and now I've taken something from you. Balance, sis. She tried to say something, probably another shallow insult, but I cut her off. Oh, and you might want to tell your guests to check their gift bags. I slipped in a little thank you note. It read, Thanks for attending the most unforgettable event at Arland Estate, under new ownership. Love, Carol. I left them there on the porch. 3 stunned statues in wedding attire, surrounded by silence. And as I walked down the drive, heels clicking against stone, I realized something. This wasn't just revenge. This was my beginning. College could wait, but building something of my own? That started today. After the wedding debacle, I expected a storm. Maybe Melanie would launch a social media crusade against me. Maybe my parents would show up at my door, tears and threats in equal measure. I even braced myself for local gossip columns to paint me as the jealous little sister with a vendetta. But you know what happened? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Silence. Melanie disappeared to some second-rate resort in the Caribbean after the venue fiasco. Her dream Bali honeymoon had already been prepaid and non-refundable, another casualty of my little interference. Apparently, even travel agencies don't refund emotional distress. She posted exactly 3 pictures during her replacement honeymoon. All of them blurry, all of them without her usual filter. That's how I knew she was suffering. And my parents? Oh, they tried to guilt-trip me. 2 days after the wedding, I got a text from my mom. Just one line. We didn't raise you to be this cold. I responded with, You didn't raise me for college either. Then I blocked the number. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was past that. I had replaced rage with reason. And reason told me one thing. If you want to win, stop begging for permission and start building your own throne. And so I did. The Arland Estate became my headquarters. I started renovating immediately, not to destroy its history, but to enhance it. I kept the ballroom floors intact, restored the antique chandeliers, and turned the upstairs suites into creative co-working spaces for young architects and engineers. I launched a scholarship program, funded with part of my business loan, ironically, one that specifically prioritized students who lost their college opportunities due to family emergencies. That was my little nod to poetic justice. The first student I awarded, a girl named Rachel, whose parents used her tuition money to buy her brother a sports car. Sound familiar? She cried when I handed her the letter. And me. I felt nothing but satisfaction. A few months in, I went public with the story. Not the wedding revenge part. No, that stayed under wraps. But I published an article titled, How Losing My College Fund Helped Me Buy a Mansion. It went viral. People were fascinated, inspired, outraged on my behalf. I got emails from readers around the world. Dozens of them shared their own stories of family betrayal. They called me brave. Some called me heartless. One person even offered to option my story for a screenplay. I politely declined. Because this wasn't fiction. This was my life now. And it only got better. One afternoon, about 6 months after the wedding, I got an unexpected visitor. Melanie. She stood outside the estate gates, sunglasses on, her once perfect hair now tied in a frazzled ponytail. I was tempted to pretend I didn't see her, but curiosity got the better of me. I buzzed her in. She didn't say hello, just marched across the courtyard like she still owned it. "This place is all over the internet," she said. "You're on podcasts now." I nodded. People like underdog stories, especially the ones that end with the underdog owning a mansion. She crossed her arms. "You humiliated me." I smiled. "You stole from me." She looked away, jaw clenched. Then, softly, she asked, "Why didn't you just talk to me first?" I raised an eyebrow. "You mean like you talked to me before draining my future for a beach selfie?" Her silence was all the answer I needed. Then, the moment I'd waited for. She pulled out a brochure from her bag, a sad little trifold promoting her new side hustle, wedding planning. I nearly laughed. "You came here for a job?" I asked. She hesitated. "I came here for an opportunity. You have the hottest venue in town now. I know events. I thought maybe I could host some of them." The irony hit me like a warm breeze. Melanie, asking me for help, begging me for access to the thing she once took from me. And in that moment, I understood what real power felt like. But I didn't gloat. Instead, I invited her to the cafe inside the estate. We sat. We sipped coffee. And I listened. Not because I forgave her, but because I had something better than revenge now. I had control. After she finished her pitch, a mediocre one at best, I told her the truth. "I'm not interested in hiring you, Melanie, but I'll let you rent space. Same rates as everyone else. No discounts." She looked stunned. "You're not even going to be spiteful?" I shrugged. Spite takes energy. I'd rather invest mine. She left without another word. And I didn't watch her go. Because there were more important things ahead. The estate thrived. My architecture program expanded. I was finally accepted into Cornell the following year, on a scholarship I earned myself. I went, graduated, came back. Now, the Arland Estate is not just a venue. It's a symbol, a blueprint, for every girl who was told to wait her turn, to be patient, to smile through the loss while someone else takes what's hers. For every student whose dreams were shelved to make room for someone else's spotlight. For every daughter who watched her future traded for a wedding dress, a party, a trip. This mansion stands for them. For us. So no, I don't regret what I did. I'd do it again. 100 times over. Because they gave my college fund to my sister's honeymoon. So I bought the place where she got married. And in the end, I turned their betrayal into my empire.